Norman stories with Bombardier Jack Norwine.
Roland Willits, OMS stories. I'm here with Jack Norwine. Is that how you pronounce it?
Norwine.
Norwine. I saw it's W-I-N-E.
Just think no beer, whiskey, nor wine.
I know. That's pretty cool. I like that. And Jack and I met at Kentucky Opry. And you were wearing a hat at that time. You got one of the hats right here, right by us here, don't you?
Yeah.
You're wearing one of these. Is that you got the Purple Heart one here?
That's the one I had.
That's one. And then I think you're wearing that one. I think you're wearing that hat.
Yeah, I wear this a lot.
That look at show everyone this hat. That is a cool hat. And there's another hat. This is a Purple Heart hat, and this one has World War II veteran, and it's got wings. Is that a B-17?
Yeah.
B-17, and a veteran's lot, and two Purple Heart.
Yeah.
I love that hat.
Well, I never understood too much about the service. It seemed like that all we done was they woke us up out of bed and told us to get up to the field, and I was a right waist gunner, so usually the officers and the radio man were the ones that went to the briefing.
Right.
And didn't have an awful lot to do. We'd just get up, go out to the plane, get on it, lay down on the floor and rest a little bit until we got to 10,000 feet so we could have to put our oxygen on then.
Yeah, okay.
And stuff, but no, we I went over and well, I went in and I was in I had lived in Oklahoma, and the day I graduated out of high school in 42, the next day I had to go down and sign up for draft because I was 18 then.
Whoa, yep.
And I was born in 23. But anyway, I went over to Little Rock. My dad was a brick foreman. They was building a chemical plant over there that made the some kind of powder they put in bombs. I know, but I just
Right.
too old to remember.
Well, we call that powder.
Powder. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I worked with him for about I don't know, a few months. And my cousin was going to go to the service. He was being drafted, and so I said I wanted to go at the same time. We were at Little Rock, so I went down to Little Rock and with him. And before that, I had backtracking when I found out that the bunch in Little Rock was going to go to the Signal Corps when I went in. And anyway, I went up through the channels and kept telling all of them I wanted to be in the Air Force. I wanted to fly. And so they finally let me. He said, like one of the officers said, I can get you into the Air Corps, but I can't help you fly because that's a different deal you've got to go through there. And I was thinking about going to pilot training or something, and you know, all kids wants to be the big shot, and I thought that would be a lot better. And my dad was always a foreman's on jobs and bosses, and so I thought, well, if you're going to be anything, try to be the biggest top shot in that bunch. And because he told me one time, you're going to be a yellow dog, you be the most yellow and bark the loudest, and said you'll make it through life. But anyway, I finally got in there. When they decided to let me go to the Air Force, then why, they sent me down to Miami Beach for my basic training. And while we were down there doing our basic training, I I decided to not go into pilot school, and I'm getting so old I forget a whole lot of the fancy names of things.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I forget them too, so you're forgiven for everything.
It doesn't matter to me. I just say
Yeah,
what I want to
just
say.
guess at it. Yes, it's a great guess.
As long as I can tell the truth, that's the only thing that matters.
That's right.
To me, because I don't want to be what you call your storytellers.
No, you tell true stories. Everything you believe and you remember.
Yeah.
That's old men's stories.
Yeah.
It's not a bull story. It's a real story.
A lot of old men don't know anything except bull stories.
I mean, so
Yeah. And anyway, I heard that at that time over in North Africa they were losing lots of gunners and enlisted men, and I found out that if I went to cadets, it would be anywhere from 16 to 18 months from the time you started till you got overseas or through flying training or whatever. And you go to gunnery school, and being they'd lost so many enlisted men in the flying in the North Africa, that the fastest way would be about 3 months. I thought, man, that's what we need. So us and a whole bunch of other guys signed up for gunnery school. Well, of course, when we after we got through our basic training, well, about that time they decided, well, they had a lot of men that were wanting to go into gunnery school and to other stuff, but it'd be a lot better for us if we were trained another way besides you'd have something on your MOS and accept that. So they sent me to A&E school up in Goldsboro, North Carolina. I was up there for a few months, and then they sent me down to Tandle Field, Panama City, Florida for gunnery school. I got into gunnery school the same weekend that Gene Autry left. I didn't get to see him. We didn't pass each other in the gateway, like you can tell fancy stories if you want to, but it's the truth. He was there and I was there, but we didn't talk to each other. We didn't meet each other. At the same time, I found out that Clark Gable was in Kingsboro, Arizona field, and he was in gunnery school and stuff over there. Of course, when he was a big shot, so when he got out of that, they gave him a camera and called him a photographer in a big ranking and sent him to England. And but I don't know where Gene Autry went. Never could find him no more. After I got out of gunnery school, they sent us up to Salt Lake City for about 4 or 5 weeks of a little bit of being talked to and lectured and a lot of different things, and then deciding on putting a cruise together for B-17s. They put us on a train after that to send us to Newport News, Virginia. I believe it was Langley Field there. And we met our crew members, our pilot and co-pilot and the other radio operator and tail gunners and all this and that over on the train going. We'd go up and down the aisles and telling each other, if my memory's right, I think they called us, my crew number was going to be C-13, C like cat or something. And so we went up and down the aisles and on the troop train later on too, talking to, meeting our crew members and getting to be friends on the way. Well, we done pretty good. And they got us up to, I was mistaken about Langley Field going there then. I went there later. They sent us to Sioux City, Iowa, is where we were starting our bomber training, and we was there for a while. What was the lady in the newspapers that wrote articles? People would write in and tell their sad stories about, and give them advice. Annie something, and her sister. They're still somebody else. They passed away, and somebody else is doing it now. You'll see them in the newspapers. We went roller skating a few nights, and they done roller skating. Lots of young people wanted to go learn to dancing, but I loved roller skating, and I met both those ladies.
And Landers, I think it is.
And Landers, yeah, at a roller rink, and while we was in Sioux City, and so then I didn't know anybody else again until we got to. They sent us to from Sioux City. They sent us down to Kearney, Nebraska, to pick up a B-17 to fly over to overseas. We got down there and they didn't have any. The factories had already sent out. They had also developed these women pilots at that time that would fly these bombers overseas, and so the men could be flying in combat and didn't have to fly take their uses up and let the women. The women were good pilots, from what I understand. They got them overseas, and I know later on they were sending a lot of pilots overseas, flying their planes that they were going to get to fly, and some of them get lost halfway over, around the Azores or somewhere. They just didn't make it all the way. It's kind of a rough trip going down to South America and over to Canary Islands or wherever it was, and going on over there. But some of them would get lost before they just didn't have enough training. They trained us too fast on a lot of things, and but they put us up. Then they sent us to Langley Field to. When they didn't have any planes to fly over, they sent us to Langley Field, and they put us on one of these little ships. What do you call them? Little ships that's made just for transporting
Troop carriers?
Little troop carriers, yeah, little small ones. And they sent us over to North Africa, and we stayed there about 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. Slept with her at night with her eyes wide open, because them people over there was busy stealing our mattress covers and everything to make clothes out of, and we didn't want to lose them all. And then most of the time we were sent out to an airfield out there to be guards at night anyway, so that they wouldn't steal our B-17s or other planes around there. And we didn't go into town because they was kind of rough people there. I mean, they was people like you run across in a lot of places that have lived a tough life of just living, of having something to eat every day or something like that. So we wouldn't go into town and drink hardly any, because we'd end up getting in trouble and be in worse shape than we was of flying combat, I think. And so after a while, in part of June, these were things I didn't know at the time and hadn't even heard of, but they were going to send a lot of trips over to climb over to Utah Beach and all them other places over there in France. They sent us and a whole bunch of the free French soldiers. after Hitler had taken over a lot of France, a lot of them French was down in Africa, and they sent us all over to up to Italy, and it was during this same time. In fact, I think we landed in one of the places in Italy, the place that had the big volcano, Pompeii.
Pompeii, yep.
Pompeii. We landed there, and then they put us on the little cattle carrier troop train things that sent us over to the other side of Italy to a place called Foggia, Foggia, and that was a B-17 area, and right south of there a little bit. They had about 4 or 5 B-17 areas there. Then they had some B-24s, and I think they had some little fighter plane places there too, right there at the bottom tip of the island of, the country of Italy, and from Italy, we was over there, and I think the first escort we had on a mission, the first mission I made was Budapest, Hungary, and that was on June 27th of 44. July the 26th, I got hurt over from flak over Vienna, and spent a lot of months in the hospital and recuperating and stuff like that.
What do you do in the tail gunning area?
I wasn't a tail gunner.
You weren't? Oh.
I was, plays are wrong sometimes. His memory's not as
Oh,
good.
his memories, yeah.
He's had me flying from a waist gunner to a radio operator to tail gunner, and but I was right waist, and I traded places with the tail gunner twice, so I got to sit back there and be a tail gunner, not knowing near as much as what he already knew, and at that time he'd only flown about 4 or 5 missions.
Did you test the guns at the front end when you took off?
Yeah, after you get up in the airway, after you get out over the Adriatic, you test your guns in and make sure they're all, you knew where the trigger was at, stuff like that. But part of our training was knowing how to take a 50 caliber apart, blindfolded, take it apart, lay the pieces out on front of you somewhere on a table or floor or something, and then put it back together. And we had to do that quite a few times to more or less make memory, make it like automatic you could remember. But we did test our guns and stuff and make sure that ammunition was coming through right and stuff. You didn't shoot many shells because I think each gun on the 17, we had 13 guns, 50 calibers, and I believe we had 600 rounds of ammunition apiece in each gun. So you didn't want to shoot too much wasted because you're going to need it for sure later. And so I tried that was to teach us how to do little small bursts instead of hitting the trigger and letting it stay open, because I did burn up one barrel one time while I was over there. That fighter plane just kept right on coming, the 109. It just kept right on coming and circling and come back again and stuff, and I shot so many, I burned a barrel up using all my ammunition, and we had a lot of that, and our jobs were heavy factories, ball bearing factories, airplane factories, truck factories, railroad factories, railroad yards where, like, I think where I was at, it went over to Vienna, was part of what do they call it? Anyway, it was a railroad yard that went through right at the edge of where lots of trains met, and they would gang up and stop right there. And I don't know whether they were taking on fuel or what they were doing there, but they had a lot of flak guns, anti-aircraft guns, and that was when I got hurt there. Why? When I got out of the hospital, I woke up and Red Cross had a movie star there named Madeline Carroll, who was married to Sterling Hayden. They were both movie stars. And she was in the Red Cross, and he was flying little cargo planes that dropped stuff over in Yugoslavia for Tito, I guess, or for somebody. And when I got out of surgery, well, Madeline Carroll was talking to me, and Stephanie kind of found out that there was reason they was doing that, having her and other people like her talk to the servicemen when they come out of surgery, a little while after they come out of surgery and coming out of the narcotics or whatever it was they were giving them. A lot of servicemen were dying of shock. Because when the last thing I heard before I went into surgery, when they was putting that thing over my nose to make me go to sleep, go to pass out, painkiller stuff, was I heard somebody say, amputate. I got shot through the left arm. And another doctor said, well, I've got to go in there first and do some exploratory and see how much damage that he'd lost, an awful lot of blood. And so the main thing that run through my mind right then was that it had hit the main artery or something. And but when I come to, I still had my arm. So Madeline Carroll was there, and I met her. The next day, officer come by my bed, and Joe Lewis and Sugar Ray was there, and they were in the Army, but they were putting on boxing expeditions. I mean, little boxing shows, like a USO show in a way for us. We didn't get the dancing girls and Bob O'Brien and all that stuff. We got two really good boxers. Anyway, Joe was standing beside my bed talking to me, and Sugar Ray was talking to the guy on my right on the other side. He'd had a pretty bad back injury from a wreck or something. And anyway, this guy come through and pitched my Purple Heart over onto my bed and said, Joe, pin this on Norwine. So Joe got my Purple Heart out and he pinned it on my pajamas. And so I got to walk around with a Purple Heart on my pajamas. But I think everybody in the whole ward, it was a ward of 20 guys in there, and I think every one of them had a Purple Heart troop maybe of some kind, you know. They was in there for some reason. And the day after that, why, Madeline brought her husband in, Sterling Hayden, and he talked to us for a little while. And then the only thing I could hear from a lot of them talking was that they were thinking about sending me home. And so I was doing rehab a lot, and I finally talked to doctor to not send me home. And he said, why don't you want to go home? I said, well, on the day after the doctor let me go back to my base to be with my buddies, I spent the night there with them, and the next morning I got up with them. They was going to fly the next day over Czechoslovakia, and they all got shot down that day. They lost, I believe it was 9 planes, that day, and so that's 90 men. And on my crew, the guy that took my place was killed. The other parts of my crew members were five of them was killed, and 5 prisoners of war altogether. And so then the doctors still kept talking about sending me home, and I wanted to stay. And they said, well, I want to finish my mission. I had all kinds of little excuses just to not go home. And I wanted to be around in case that prisoner of war POW camp was loosened or something like that. Why, that was before Patton was getting most of them. And he finally kept letting me stay around, and he didn't want to because he said he wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to do what he told me to because he was ordered to do different things. You know, I guess they needed an extra bed in some tent for somebody else. I was supposed to vacate mine. But it turned out that we still went around there for a while. I still had to go back and forth to the hospital every day for rehab training or something, whatever they call that, and get my arm straightened back out again because it had doubled up, and I was having to wear a sling all the time anyway, like I'd broken arm. And they finally let me go back to flying again. And so I flew as an extra gunner with whatever crew was short of one. So I didn't meet any new friends or make any new friends. I done lost my friends I had and didn't want to gain any more and lose them too. There's so many things run through my mind that I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do or what I should do, what was right to do, this or that. I knew my mother and daddy were still at home, wanting me to come on home because they fussed at me because I didn't let the service send me home. And I figured when I got back, why, they would find something else for me to do. They would send me off somewhere else that I didn't know what I was going to do there either. Excuse me. And I wanted to, when I did get to come back to the States, why, I wanted to go into WWII training. I said I wanted to go to flight engineer school. They said, well, I couldn't because I already had injuries, and they had a lot of other servicemen coming into the service that were younger and better educated than me and could do things quicker than I could, learn things quicker than I could. So I didn't. I finally just took my discharge, and my folks lived in Houston then, so I went to Houston. I stayed there, and I ended up here in Kentucky now. And somebody asked me how come I left Houston and come to Kentucky, or how'd I get away from Houston and get up into Kentucky? And I said, just lucky, I guess. I liked it up here. It was quieter, more laid back. In Houston, where I was working, I was a bricklayer then, and I was boss on lots of jobs. And sometimes I had one job going. One time I had 6 jobs going all at the same time. It was just a fast. And if you've ever been around Houston right now, it takes a long time just to get from one side of Houston to the other side. And I was starting to get that down there, and it took me sometimes 2 hours just to get across town to the job, and then work 8 hours, and then 2 hours or so to get back.
Well, that's a good reason for coming to Kentucky.
That was, yeah.
And this is a nice town here. I've never been in this town.
Yeah,
I just drove in and found this place.
Yeah.
Man, look at that. They got a park called Old Park. I was looking over the right, left down the road there.
Yeah.
Old Park. Well, that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Nice town here.
Yeah, it is. Well, they've got quite a few parks here now. They started building ballparks and for the kids and things like that, and they get a little bit of money from the government or from somebody. I don't know.
Someone,
Donations,
wherever they can get a buck, and they
donations and things like that. Most after I come up here, I worked a lot at that, but I also joined I was already a Mason. I joined the Shriners. I got to thinking about the Shriners. I didn't know nothing about them hardly, other than just the name. And I found out about their hospitals, and I thought a lot about the bombs that we dropped over in Europe. Must have killed an awful lot of children, or injured an awful lot of children. And of course, there's a whole lot of people, but the children was what bothered my mind more. And I dream about them and stuff like that at night. Anyway, well, I thought it's raining outside.
It sure did. It is raining now. Look at that.
Yeah. I decided that I liked the Shriners, and I started driving children back and forth to the hospitals and things. And I've done that for about 20-some years. I averaged over 15,000 miles a year I was going, and I enjoyed that. Just seeing these children being taken care of that had been sickness or injured some other way. It wasn't my fault that I could help take care of. So then I got too old. I got too old to work, and
got too old to lift those big blocks.
oh yeah,
The little bricks are okay. The little ones, you know.
couldn't do that.
He said he's put in a brick. What did you say? He put in all the bricks.
All they asked me one time. Somebody asked me how many bricks could I lay a day, and I said one every time a heartbeat.
Wow.
And well, that's just one of my wild stories, you know.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have stories to tell, you don't have anything to tell.
That's right. That's right. Old men's stories.
Yeah. But that's been most of my life right then. I raised a lot of children, and first one passed away. The second one I have now, we ended up, both of us having a daughter by the name of Barbara Jean. And so when we talk about something, we say something about Barbara, I always say yours or mine. because you know, they're both quite a bit alike and stuff like that. You go up at the Opry. Clay's wife, Barbie, is named
This is
Barbara
a Kentucky. Yeah, this is a Kentucky Opry.
Kentucky Opry, yeah. Country music.
Cool country music.
I started out listening to Bob Wills in Oklahoma when my parents used to go to their dances and stuff. And they put on a lot of good shows, and I always did like country music. And I've been all over. Wife and I have been on cruises. We've been on a lot of places that had shows of different kinds, and have never found any show that was any better than we go to the Kentucky Opry.
I agree.
We've had season passes out there for 20-some years, and sit in the same seats. Barbie's daddy has repaired them twice. And now they've changed and put in a whole lot of new seats.
New seats in, yeah. Blake was telling me that.
Well, and they're too close together, or I can't get my knees back far enough for somebody to pass me that wants to sit down in the middle of the road, you know.
Yeah, it is a little narrower.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I think it's because it's thicker.
Yeah, and I'm older and stiffer now than I was. I used to be. I just can't double up and get out of their way now.
Well, I think you have it bad.
And people,
They have to get out of the aisle for me to sit down.
people say apologize for me having to, I'll sit right on the aisle. My wife sits next to me, first two seats. So they apologize for us having to move around or get out of the way a little bit for them to get down to where they're supposed to sit. And I tell them I enjoyed it. The reason we picked those seats so we'd have somebody to talk to every once in a while.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I meet a lot of new people, and every time Clay mentions up there when he's fixing to sing a song about service soldiers and servicemen, there was times, you know, the year he always mentioned my name. It's Jack Norwine, 2 Purple Hearts, and
Put that hat on for when we complete this show. There you go. Isn't that? He looks cool in that hat.
I'll tell you,
I'd wear. You know, I was gonna remind me, but it's just I forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a cool. I really like that. I'm jealous.
I'll tell you
I
what.
gotta look for a hat like that.
I enjoy any serviceman. Well, if you're not a serviceman, if you work for a shoe factory or something somewhere, they always have caps to wear. Whatever kind of business they're in, they always have caps to wear. And I always wondered why the servicemen didn't let other people know what they had done. Well, I like knowing, because by telling what I did in the service, I get to find out a lot of times what somebody else did that I've seen dozens of times and never knew, didn't have an idea.
It's a nice conversation starter, isn't it?
And people come by and they'll thank me for my service, so they make me have to ask them, were they in the service too? And I find out a lot of them were. And so I tell them right then, I said, well, where's some identification then? That's how you found me. Let me find you.
I wear mine usually every once in a while. I normally try all kinds of. I have a whole bunch of different hats, but my veterans hat, I got a really nice one down in Florida.
Yeah.
They had a nice place, and I'll wear it on many occasions, and I forget. It's like I go in and I say, "What hat should I wear?" They'll put my cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
Right now I just registered as a Texan.
Yeah.
So I'm a cowboy for a while.
Yeah. Well, I've got one from New Zealand. It's in Australia. I love all leather. Yeah. And I bought it over in New Zealand. I was in both places one time. After when I was running around loose between wives, we both lost our mates the same month, same year. So, in fact, we started going to the Opry, and I tell everybody that we got engaged down there holding hands in the dark.
Hear that, Clay? Hear that? You got a romance going all the time, and you're in the theater, when you turn down the lights.
We didn't go all the way to the back. We sat up front, because they have us do things sometimes that you can't see in the dark. Like they want you to vote, on the ones that are singing, which one might be a winner, which one you like the best.
That's right.
And I like them all.
That's right. It's hard to pick.
I watched Clay's 3 boys from the time they were about 4 years old. Each one of them has grown all up, and now they're all musicians, and every one of them are good. And he trains a lot of other young children that we've watched that are all up playing fiddles and banjos and guitars and all good instruments, and every one of them are good. And some of them we've watched the girls go through college of the ones that have been up there that he trained and talked to a lot, and some of them talk back, which is good. he just got some good entertainment, and so we go there all the time. Right now, neither wife and I, neither one of us drive, so we wait for some of our family or somebody else to drive us up there and drive us back. And, so we get to do that a lot. So like I said before, we don't get out and drive around very much. We don't get a chance to because neither one of us driving, and so most of the time we sit here in the living room, across the room from each other, and sit there giving sweet eyes to each other.
Isn't that nice?
Ain't that nice? And I had here the other day, I had a lot of neighbors and stuff like that come by on Mother's Day.
Oh, wow.
So I was cutting a rose off, or knocked down roses out there. I'd cut a rose off, and I'd go over and give one of them, and Happy Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And I did my wife the same way. So about the time I got through with all them, I went back over again, and I cut down another rose, and I took it back over, and I said, Happy Sweetheart Day.
That's so nice.
Well, I'm just as sweet as they come.
Yes, you are.
There's not many things I've learned in 90-some years, but
some things you can get down to almost an art. You can't really win 100% all the time, depending on their mood, but normally you can swing them.
If you don't learn how to gloss over your mistakes,
that's
right. You haven't learned anything.
That's right.
And so, anyway, well, I can't think of any other kind of stories.
Okay. So,
but,
what I'm going to have you do then to end this is you're going to say Jack Norwine OMS stories. You look right at the camera and just almost yell it.
It's not Jack Norwine.
Norwine.
It's Jack Norwine.
Norwine. I thought Norwine.
Yeah.
And I tried to pronounce Norwine, but I said Norwine. I just blew it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And any Norwine in the United States is directly related to me in close. There's about 75 families or something like that from California to Virginia and Florida and different places. They all left out where I was at. I don't know why. Maybe I told stories on them that they didn't believe. No, I don't. A lot of them I don't know personally. I've done genealogy and I've met them all, and I talked to them on the phone. I used to do email them, and I've got where I've had a couple of strokes lately, and I've got where sometimes it's hard for me to remember yesterday, and I have trouble sometimes to sit down at the computer again and remember how to turn it on and to locate what I used to do a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't have the energy now to even want to. I think about it, but thinking is a lot different than doing.
That's right. So now, let me try this over again. Say, Jack Norwine, OMS stories. Look right at that camera. And say,
Jack Norwine, OMS stories.
Roland Willits, OMS stories. Yes.
Yeah.
OMS stories. One more day. Flying B-17 bombers? No.